Hello, everyone. I'm Elon Musk, and I'd like to share with you some of the fascinating moments I've witnessed in Washington. These experiences have shaped my perspective on policy and the future we're building together, and I'm excited to take you through them. I am standing in this fluorescent washed corridor of an Indiana government building, watching Donald Trump pacing in a haze of self-inflicted fury, and everything about him is radiating the brittle panic of a man who is losing control of the very machine he once believed he could bend with a single sneeze. And as I'm watching him bark into his phone about gerrymandering maps that are not materializing for him, no matter how loudly he snarls, I'm realizing that his problem is not strategy, not timing, not even the incompetence he keeps pretending belongs to someone else. It is the simple fact that his own party is no longer buying what he is selling, and he is too wrapped in his own mythology to see that the spell is breaking right in front of him. He is insisting he is winning, insisting he is feared, insisting Indiana lawmakers are trembling at his latest Truth Social tantrum, while on the other side of the same hallway, the Republicans he is trying to bully are shaking their heads, refusing to be dragged into his latest mess, and they're doing it with the weary calm of people who are finally tired of babysitting a man who keeps setting his own hair on fire. The air is thick with that strange blend of political anxiety and cheap carpet glue, and as Trump keeps pacing, rambling about landslides that never happened and mandates that never existed, J.D. Vance is hovering near him like a malfunctioning drone, trying to pretend he is fixing something while simultaneously admitting through every twitch that his mission is already dead on arrival. He is whispering excuses, Trump is snapping back, and every sentence is collapsing into the next in this chaotic loop of blame, denial, and desperation that is making even the marble walls seem embarrassed to be witnessing it. Then Trump is calling Mike Johnson, expecting magic, expecting obedience, expecting the miracle he keeps demanding from people who no longer believe in his thunder. And Johnson, polite as a man cornered by a bear, is repeating the same thin assurances that sound less like loyalty and more like someone trying to keep an unstable patient calm. Trump is waving the phone like a weapon, insisting the Indiana Senate will submit, insisting Bray is finished, insisting anyone who defies him is committing political suicide. And the absurdity of it is echoing through this hallway where every Republican aide passing by is pretending not to hear the tantrum of a man who once terrified them but is now behaving like a grandparent yelling at a thermostat. I keep watching Trump shift from swagger to panic to delusion in the span of a single breath, and as he sputters about Epstein conspiracies, lost seats, traitors, rigged maps, and Democrats setting traps he keeps falling into with Olympic precision, it is obvious that he is not leading anything anymore. He is reacting, flailing, scrambling to control a reality that keeps slipping through his fingers, while the very people he is counting on are calculating how far they can distance themselves without triggering another meltdown. And as he storms back and forth, ranting about how everyone owes him everything, how he is the only one who understands the stakes, how Indiana must bend to his will because he once got the most votes he can remember, I am standing here watching the sad comedy of a man who is discovering in real time that the empire he thinks he is commanding is no longer listening, no longer scared, no longer willing to contort itself around his ego, and the silence on the other end of Mike Johnson's line is proving it more clearly than anything Trump is yelling right now as he turns toward me, still fuming, still insisting this is all under control while every single sign in this building is saying otherwise. And then he stops talking for half a breath, as if realizing just how little his words are landing, before launching into another frantic monologue that is spiraling even faster now, as the walls feel like they're closing in around him. And I am watching it all unfold in this bizarre mixture of political tragedy and farce as he demands everyone fall in line, even though the corridor outside his bubble is already moving on without him, leaving him shouting orders into a void he pretends not to see, while he grips that phone like it is the last tether he has to relevance before he clutches his jacket, mutters something about fixing it himself, and stomps toward the next room as if volume alone is going to bend reality back into his hands. And I am moving after him because this unraveling is only accelerating. Trump is bursting into the next room like someone expecting the universe to snap to attention. But what he gets instead is a semicircle of Indiana Republicans who are gathered around a table speaking in the measured low tones of people trying to solve an adult problem without inviting the noisy toddler who keeps insisting he is in charge. And as he barges in, their faces freeze in that polite horror normally reserved for someone who just walked into the wrong wedding. He is demanding updates, demanding allegiance, demanding they throw away months of work to satisfy his impulsive obsession with redrawing maps that even his own consultants are quietly admitting will backfire, but he is too deep in his paranoia to hear any of that. So he keeps talking over them like a man drowning himself in his own rhetoric. Bray is sitting nearest to him, spine straight, expression calm, in the way a surgeon stays steady while a patient screams. And he is explaining for the third time that the caucus does not have the votes, that forcing a rushed redistricting plan will not survive scrutiny, that they cannot do this just because Donald Trump is lecturing them from a hallway he does not understand, but Trump is waving his hands, insisting the votes are there, insisting the loyalty is there, insisting fear is still a currency he can spend, even though everyone in this room is quietly refusing to cash it. J.D. Vance is sliding into the background like someone who wants to evaporate, whispering that he tried, that he talked to the key lawmakers, that maybe they need more time, but Trump is spinning on him, eyes narrowing, accusing him of being weak, ineffective, a disappointment that he is already blaming for this entire collapse, even though the collapse is happening because Trump is treating seasoned politicians like interns he can intimidate with a bad Yelp review. Meanwhile, Mike Johnson is still on speakerphone, his voice cutting through the tension in that soft campaign season register that tries to sound authoritative while also begging not to be yelled at. And he is explaining that the gerrymander Trump wants will not deliver what Trump thinks it will deliver, that tightening too many districts risks flipping them if the political environment keeps worsening, which it is, loudly, publicly, undeniably worsening, because every new Trump outburst is creating more distance between the party and the voters they actually need. Trump is scoffing, insisting the polls are lies, insisting the base is stronger than ever, insisting that the Epstein mess is a Democratic plot rather than the internal implosion it truly is. And as he is saying all of this, his voice is rising, his gestures are sharper, his desperation is seeping through every syllable, because he can sense that whatever spell he used to cast over these people is evaporating. Pete Buttigieg's warning is still hanging in the air like a quiet, stubborn truth, the kind of truth Trump cannot shout away. And I am watching the Republicans in this room exchange glances that say they know they are being cornered by a man who is clinging to a fantasy while dragging them toward a cliff they do not want to fall from. Trump is pointing at Bray, accusing him of sabotage, accusing him of cowardice, accusing him of plotting to embarrass him. And Bray, steady, patient, unflinching, is responding that he answers to the people of Indiana, not to a social media tirade from a man who's trying to micromanage a state he barely understands. The air shifts subtly but unmistakably, and Trump senses it because he launches into another frantic rant about primary challenges, threats that used to make these lawmakers break into cold sweats, but now land with the dull thud of an old scare tactic that has lost its teeth. The Republican aides in the back are pretending to check their phones, but are actually documenting in their minds the moment when Trump's authority hits the floor like a dropped vase. He is pacing again, words tripping over each other, spitting out grievances about Texas, about Mike Johnson, about people not listening, not obeying, not appreciating the greatness he keeps insisting he still possesses, and it is getting messier by the second, unraveling with the frantic energy of a man who knows his grip is slipping and is clawing at anything he can reach. Bray is responding calmly, almost clinically, telling Trump they will reconvene, telling him the caucus will decide, telling him it will not happen today just because he storms into a room and demands a reality that does not exist. And Trump is staring at him with this stunned, wounded outrage as if no one has ever dared speak to him like an equal, let alone a grown-up correcting a child mid-tantrum. For a moment, the room is frozen, the tension so sharp it feels like it is humming, and then Trump's expression twists as he pivots to Johnson, accusing him of not pushing hard enough, not whipping votes, not delivering, and Johnson's voice on the phone is cracking just slightly as he tries to maintain dignity while Trump is using him like a verbal punching bag in front of half a state legislature. And as the spectacle of ego and unraveling power spirals further, I can feel the shift becoming permanent, irreversible, a tectonic crack right beneath Trump's feet as he keeps talking faster, louder, more desperately, while the people he believes he controls are quietly stepping away from him, psychologically if not physically, creating distance as he keeps trying to pretend the room still belongs to him. And I am watching it all as he barrels forward into another breathless tirade about maps and loyalty and betrayals that are piling up faster than he can process them, his words accelerating until they begin tripping over themselves again as he reaches for a new target to blame. Trump is now circling the conference table like a restless predator who has forgotten why the prey stopped running, and the Republicans seated around it are watching him with that rigid, practiced stillness people use when a volatile person is pacing too close, and every step he takes is rattling the fragile illusion that he is still in control of anything happening here. He is insisting that Democrats are orchestrating traps, insisting that the media is conspiring against him, insisting that if these lawmakers do not fix the Indiana map this very moment, the entire country is going to collapse under the weight of their supposed disloyalty. And as he keeps spiraling deeper into this frantic sermon about existential doom, the absurdity grows thicker than the stale coffee on the counter. Mike Johnson's voice on speakerphone is softening to the tone people use when talking someone out of a meltdown, repeating that they must be careful, that rushing the process risks court challenges, that Trump's demands are colliding with political reality. And Trump is glaring at the phone like it just insulted his height, shouting that he does not care about courts or optics, shouting that Republicans are supposed to fall in line when he says so, shouting that he won Indiana by a landslide. He keeps inflating with every retelling. Bray is holding his ground, hands folded, expression calm, with a stubborn moral gravity that is cutting through Trump's noise. And he repeats that they cannot engineer districts on the basis of one man's political anxiety, but Trump is snapping back, calling him weak, calling him ungrateful, calling him a disappointment to the movement he still believes is worshiping him. And while he rants, I am noticing something he is refusing to see. The slight shift in posture among these legislators, the small but unmistakable sign that they are no longer intimidated by the former aura Trump used to carry like a weapon. They are tense, yes, but not frightened. Alert, yes, but not obedient. And as Trump keeps escalating, the gap between his imagined authority and his actual influence is widening in real time. J.D. Vance, trapped in a corner of the room, is trying to smooth things over by repeating bland slogans about unity and long-term vision. But every word he utters is dissolving before it reaches anyone, because the room is suffocating under the weight of Trump's simmering rage. Trump shifts topics with the jittery desperation of someone running out of ammunition, jumping from gerrymandering to Epstein to Texas to polls to Democrats to betrayal, and the narrative he is stitching together is so incoherent that even Johnson falls silent, realizing there is no point in trying to anchor a man who is drifting so quickly into his own fog. The lawmakers, to their credit, are still responding with discipline, still choosing reason over panic, still pushing back with measured explanations that Trump refuses to comprehend. And the contrast is so stark, it almost feels scripted, like Trump is the chaotic antagonist in a political drama, and the Indiana Republicans are the weary professionals who are done pretending the circus is leadership. Trump slams his hand on the table, not hard enough to break anything, but loud enough to demand attention, and he hisses that without this map, Republicans are doomed, that Democrats are plotting the end of civilization, that anyone who resists him will face a primary challenge he imagines is still a death sentence. But the threat lands flat, a hollow echo of a power that used to be real, but is now slipping from his fingers like water he cannot grasp. One of the lawmakers leans forward, choosing his words carefully, and tells Trump that the district he wants carved out is too risky, that the numbers do not support it, that voters are shifting, that Trump's presence is making some swing areas more volatile than safe, and Trump recoils as if he has been slapped, accusing the man of spreading Democratic talking points, accusing him of sabotage, accusing him of failing the party, but the accusation is falling into an emotional void that no one is willing to fill with reassurance. And then it happens, the moment Trump never expects. Bray calmly tells him that the caucus will not be bullied, that the maps will not be weaponized for one man's ego, that they will reconvene when the time is right. Not when Trump storms through a door expecting the world to rearrange itself for him, and Trump freezes, mouth half open, stunned that someone is speaking to him with boundaries he cannot bulldoze. The silence stretches, and it is brutal, unmistakable, definitive, the kind of silence that signals a shift in power that Trump cannot reverse with volume or threats. He starts talking again, faster, more erratic, trying to regain control by drowning everyone in noise, but the room is no longer absorbing it. The lawmakers are exchanging glances. Johnson is breathing into the phone like he is praying for a technical failure. J.D. Vance looks ready to fold himself into a suitcase just to escape the tension, and Trump is standing there, red-faced, sweating, desperate, hurling accusations that no longer have the weight he imagines they do. He is insisting they have to act now, that Democrats are outmaneuvering them, that time is running out, that he alone knows how to save the situation. But every sentence is landing like static in a room filled with people who already know he is spiraling. And the harder he pushes, the more obvious it becomes that the spell is broken. And he is the only one who has not accepted it yet, as he lunges into another breathless rant that is tripping over itself before it even reaches coherence. The unraveling accelerating as he grabs at any argument he can find. Trump is now gripping the back of a chair like it is the last sturdy object anchoring him to relevance. And the room is watching him with that rigid patience people summon when a man in free fall is still pretending he is on solid ground. And the gulf between his delusions and their reality is widening with every frantic breath he takes. He is insisting that the Indiana map is not just a political tool, but a test of loyalty, insisting that any hesitation is proof of betrayal, insisting that Democrats are running circles around Republicans because no one is listening to him, and the desperation in his voice is rising like steam from a pot that is seconds away from boiling over. Mike Johnson is trying to interject with a diplomatic sentence about timing and optics, but Trump cuts him off with a bark, accusing him of being soft, accusing him of letting Democrats trap him on the Epstein vote, accusing him of failing to deliver even the simplest political victories. And the crack in Johnson's voice is unmistakable as he tries to explain that leadership is not the same thing as obedience, that governing requires more than tantrums and threats. But Trump is not hearing a syllable. J.D. Vance is shrinking further into the corner, nodding at everything Trump says in a desperate attempt to avoid being the next target. But even he looks rattled by the sheer chaos radiating from the center of the room as Trump paces in joking lines, muttering about conspiracies, about enemies infiltrating his own movement, about people secretly sabotaging him, even though the only visible sabotage here is Trump detonating his own influence in real time. The Indiana Republicans, to their credit, are maintaining that steady, almost surgical discipline as they keep pushing back with facts, with data, with logic. Trump is swatting away like gnats. And the contrast is brutal. They are cool, deliberate, calculating, and he is oscillating between wounded arrogance and frantic pleading, as if he is expecting someone, anyone, to validate the collapsing narrative he is clinging to. Bray leans forward again, hands still folded, voice still calm, explaining that they cannot redraw districts just to soothe Trump's anxieties, that the process has rules, that voters will see through it, that the courts will intervene. And Trump snaps like a brittle branch, spitting that he is the movement, that he built the party, that he alone can define what the rules are. But the lawmakers are no longer flinching. They are studying him with the unsettling clarity of people who have finally realized the man shouting at them is not a king but a liability, And that realization is changing the air in this room, thickening it with an authority that no longer belongs to him. Trump senses it because he shifts tactics again, abandoning rage for a wheedling tone that is almost pathetic, insisting he just needs 2 seats, insisting he just needs cooperation, insisting they owe him this one win because Democrats are humiliating him. And the naked vulnerability behind the bravado is jarring enough that even J.D. Vance lifts his head in surprise, but the lawmakers are unmoved. One of them speaks softly, telling Trump that fear is not a governing strategy, that threats do not motivate them the way they used to, that Trump is no longer the unstoppable force he imagines when he looks in the mirror. And Trump recoils again, wounded, offended, as if he cannot fathom that anyone would say such a thing out loud. His face is twisting between confusion and indignation, and he starts ranting about loyalty, about betrayal, about how Republicans are falling apart because no one is willing to fight like he is. But the irony is echoing against the walls. He is not fighting for the party. He is fighting for himself. And they all know it now. Johnson finally tries to reassert some semblance of leadership, telling Trump they need to regroup, telling him they need to approach this strategically, telling him whipping votes under duress will backfire. But Trump cuts him off again, voice cracking as he accuses Johnson of being the reason everything is collapsing, the reason the caucus is slipping, the reason Democrats are winning, and the humiliation is obvious as Johnson goes silent, swallowing his response. Because arguing will only feed Trump's desperation. The tension is hitting a breaking point, and Trump senses it slipping out of his hands like everything else today. So he slams both palms on the table, leaning forward with the theatrical menace he thinks still works, promising he will not forget this, promising he will take action, promising he will bring the base down on anyone who resists him. But the threat is hollow, transparent, almost sad. No one in the room is buying it. No one is scrambling to reassure him. No one is offering the fear he is demanding. The lawmakers exchange another quiet glance, a shared understanding that Trump is not commanding them anymore, but pleading with them in the language of a man who has lost the very power he is trying to wield. Trump looks around, searching for the submission he is used to, finding none, and the silence that greets him lands heavier than any insult. Confirmation that something fundamental has shifted beyond his control as he inhales sharply, about to launch into yet another spiraling tirade that is already gathering force in his throat. Trump is inhaling as if the next explosion of words is going to finally bend the room back into submission. But instead, what comes out is a tangled rush of grievances, so frantic and disjointed that even he seems to be losing track of the point he is trying to make. And the lawmakers are sitting there in the same stiff silence, watching a man who once terrified them unravel into a spectacle they no longer feel compelled to manage. He is pacing again, steps sharp, loud, erratic, muttering about how the base is restless, how Democrats are mocking him, how the media is lying, how Johnson is failing him, how Vance is disappointing him, and each sentence is tripping over the next as if his own mind is sprinting faster than his mouth can carry it, and the panic beneath the bravado is erupting in real time. Mike Johnson's voice, still trapped on speakerphone like an unwilling hostage, is trying to interrupt with a reminder about procedural timelines and caucus vote counts, but Trump is not listening. He is talking over the phone, over the lawmakers, over himself, raising his volume as if sheer force can make reality snap back into its old shape. Bray tries once more to explain that Indiana will not commit political suicide to satisfy Trump's impulse of the hour, that this is not how governing works, that they will not be rushed into drawing defective maps just because he is afraid of a shifting political wind. And Trump whips around with a look of betrayal so exaggerated it borders on theatrical, accusing Bray of sabotaging the movement, accusing him of secretly helping Democrats, accusing him of ego, when the only ego crashing against every surface in this room is Trump's own. The lawmakers are stiffening, not with fear, but with the sober realization that Trump is not going to stop, not going to listen, not going to grasp that he no longer has the leverage he keeps pretending he wields. And that realization is creating a subtle but decisive divide. Trump on one side, clawing at authority that is evaporating in his hands, and the rest of the room on the other, grounded, calm, increasingly unwilling to indulge the delusion. Trump begins ranting again, louder, faster, words firing off like misfired ammunition, complaining that Democrats are outmaneuvering him, that Republicans are weak, that the country is slipping away because no one is following his lead. And the irony hangs in the air like smoke. He is not losing because no one is following him. He is losing because the path he is sprinting down leads off a cliff. And these lawmakers have finally decided they are not interested in swan diving after him. J.D. Vance takes a hesitant step forward, trying to salvage Trump's dignity by suggesting they take a strategic pause, perhaps revisit the numbers, perhaps gather feedback from the caucus. But Trump turns on him too, calling the suggestion cowardice, calling the hesitation traitorous, calling Vance a weak link, and the humiliation flashes across Vance's face so quickly he tries to disguise it with a nod, but the damage is done. Even he can feel the collapse. Johnson, trying one last time to reclaim order, begins outlining how the House majority is too thin to risk internal warfare, how they must avoid alienating the moderates they desperately need, how redistricting is not a toy but a political weapon that must be used with precision. But Trump interrupts him again, snapping that Johnson does not understand strategy, that he is naive, that he is letting Democrats dictate the battlefield. And the exhaustion in Johnson's silence is almost physical as he swallows whatever defense he nearly offered. The lawmakers shift in their seats as Trump circles back to his favorite refrain, that he alone knows what is happening, that he alone can save the party, that he alone can deliver victories if everyone would simply obey him. But the room is no longer bending under that claim. Instead, it is hardening, crystallizing around the understanding that Trump is not offering salvation but chaos, not leadership but volatility, not strategy but spiraling self-preservation. He slams his palm on the table again, but this time the sound is more hollow than sharp, like something inside the gesture is losing force, and he hisses that he will unleash the base, that he will call them out, that he will make sure anyone who opposes him pays for it. But even he seems to hear how empty it sounds, because his eyes flicker with that sudden flicker of doubt he keeps trying to suppress. No one moves. No one flinches. No one scrambles to soothe him or placate him or repair his unraveling authority. Instead, Bray calmly restates that they will reconvene, that the caucus will decide, that Trump's demands will not dictate the outcome, and the finality of it lands like a quiet verdict that Trump refuses to accept. He stares at the table, then at the lawmakers, then at the phone, as if expecting someone, anyone, to restore the old dynamic where his anger bent people to his will, but the moment never arrives. The silence stretches, taut, unmerciful, and Trump breaks it with one last burst of frantic, disordered fury about betrayal and incompetence, and people refusing to fight. But the room is already moving past him, already recalibrating without him, already treating his meltdown as background noise rather than command. He storms toward the door, muttering threats that have lost their bite, promises that have lost their power, declarations that have lost their audience, and as he pushes it open with a violent shove meant to signal dominance, the lawmakers remain seated, unmoved, already shifting back into the work at hand, leaving him pacing down the hallway alone, ranting into a political landscape that is no longer answering him, while the unraveling accelerates just beyond his ability to control it for even a second longer.